So in this video, I'm going to share with you guys exactly how I was able to cross $1.6 million in revenue with my brand in the last year and a half or so. I'm also going to share with you guys exactly what I'm going through right now. As you can see on your screen, April of 2025 was not the best month. It's actually the worst month that I had ever since my brand actually took off last May. So I'm going to tell you guys exactly what I'm doing right now to mitigate all the problems that I'm going through right now and how I plan to scale this brand to $10 million in revenue. I'm going to share everything in this video, so be sure to stick to the end so you get to see exactly how I was able to get from zero to how I am right now and exactly how I plan to get to $10 million in revenue and also sell the company for about $10 million. I ordered the inventory back in like November because I was really trying to get that product down like as perfect as possible. There were still mistakes on the product even after I ordered the inventory. So one thing I would say is that try to get a good prototype in, but don't really focus too much on making the product super perfect before you drop it because you're just delaying the amount of money that you could be collecting. And I promise you, you would not be able to guess when everybody received their order. And it was during this big ass spike right here last May. It literally took almost like 6 months or 7 months for everybody to get their order just because I did not anticipate stuff going on with the freight, the prototype, the manufacturing issue, like the warehouse being fucked up. Like so much shit went wrong during the first round of inventory, but I learned a lot from that mistake. But that's basically like how my initial launch went. I ordered the product like over here or like around here, and then it came in during here. But that's exactly why you see this big ass spike, because people were basically pre-ordering all up until like this point right here in last April. Once I received the inventory, I basically was able to ship out within 2 or 4 days. So that means that like everybody was getting the order, and I was actually able to increase my ad spend and just push way more money into the ads and just get more sales. So May 2024 was my first $100,000 month, which sounds crazy to say that I did that just fucking selling flashcards. Like who knew? But the market was there. They wanted the product. There was a gap in the market. That explains the $100,000 month that I'm doing so far. If you have a good solution to a problem and there's no other people selling that solution to that problem, you're going to make a shit ton of money. So that just goes to show that if you really have a good idea and you do your product research and you understand how you're going to distribute this product, you're going to make a shit ton of money. So basically at this point, I had just received the inventory. Everything was going well. I wasn't really dialed in on my systems. I didn't really know how much I was making in profit. I started using a platform called Triple Whale to track all my expenses and then just know how much I was spending on ads. So at this point, I wasn't really doing anything when it came to like systemizing stuff. I had already hired maybe just one VA to answer my emails. July actually took a little bit of a dip. I actually forgot what happened during that month, but it wasn't that bad, because the month prior we did 116K. This one was only like, 20K less, which is not bad. It's still good, obviously better than the other months. But then time went on and I was scaling. I started to bump the ad spend. During this time, I actually hired my email team. I hired my accountant firm, which is the best in the game. I'll link everybody that I've hired down below. I highly recommend them. But during this time, I wasn't really understanding how to, scale past 100K a month. I think the biggest month I've had was 164K in revenue. And this does include Amazon and Shopify orders, because I started to list my product on Amazon and I was doing FBM at the time, meaning that I was not sending in inventory into Amazon. That's called FBA. FBM is fulfilled by merchant and FBA is fulfilled by Amazon. So I was actually fulfilling the orders myself. Well, not myself manually, but my warehouse was fulfilling the orders. So all the orders that we were getting from Amazon, they were being sent out by my 3PL. Now, the main difference between FBM and FBA is Prime. So if you send in products into Amazon warehouses, they are now eligible for Prime, meaning that anybody that has Prime will be able to get that product with free shipping, which also means that you'll be able to pop up at the top because Prime listings are obviously, ranked higher. So meaning that you have access to customers that have Prime, meaning that you probably are going to get more orders for your product. So I started listing my product on Amazon back in October of 24. Actually, no, it was August of 24, but it didn't really pick up until the end of the month. Obviously, November was my biggest month because of Black Friday. But during this time, I actually still couldn't really get my numbers intact. I thought I knew how much I was making in profit, but I really didn't. So one thing I would tell you is that if you are making substantial amount of money, like after you're making 100K a month, you really want to dial in your profit numbers and know how much you're actually paying yourself. Because once you get to the point when you're making a good amount of money, you're going to want to switch over from being an LLC over to an S Corp. At least for me, since I'm in the United States, it's highly recommended that you switch over to an S corporation after you make, $50,000 in profit per year. That way you're able to save on self-employment taxes. This is all stuff that I learned on YouTube and from my accountant as well. So once you get to a good amount of money that you're making per year, you're going to want to switch over to an S corp. But when you switch over to an S corp, you have to give yourself something called a reasonable salary. And a reasonable salary, I think, defined by the IRS is like 30% of profits. And but you could also do distributions. So there's two ways that you could pay yourself as an S corp. One is you manually transfer as much money as you want from your business bank account to your personal bank account. And two, it's putting yourself on a reasonable salary. So it's just 30% of profits. But if you hire the accountants that I told you and you just use a payroll software, the payroll software will automatically, run the payroll every 2 weeks or however long you want it. So you don't really have to worry about it. It's going to be automated. But if you ever want to take money out, 10 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand, you can take as much as you want out of the business, but those are called distributions. I'm not really going to go into the whole tax thing and the whole payroll thing on this video, but once you start making around 50 to 100 grand a year in profit, you're going to want to switch over to an S Corp in the United States to save money on self-employment taxes. That's like one of the main things that you should do once you actually get to a level where, your business got off the ground and you're making good money. You're going to want to do that to save money on taxes. Obviously, November was my best month because of Black Friday. December wasn't really that crazy. It was good, but it wasn't better than November, 158K. If you're in a certain industry, you're probably going to expect like a downturn in the beginning of the year. I didn't know exactly what to expect because this was actually going to be my very first official Q1 because I actually started selling the product officially back in 2024. You could say that I was selling it back in 2023, but I really didn't have any inventory and I couldn't scale to the level that I wanted to scale because of the inventory. So I officially started selling the product back in May. So my first Q1 was January 2025 and I didn't really know what to expect. But as you can see, heading into Q2, it really took a dip. And I don't want to blame it on the tariffs, but what's going on right now with the stock market going down. And I really think that a lot of people, especially my customers, are scared to buy. They don't really want to spend money or at least $65 on flashcards. And I kind of realized that I couldn't really rely on just one product because this entire time, most of these sales, I would say like 98% of these sales are literally just one product. I was able to make $1.6 million in revenue with just one product. I had a few other products that I was selling, like a trauma kit, which is like a first aid kit, and a hat and other products, but they didn't really perform as well. I didn't decide to run any traffic to it because the main product was just killing it. So I was just running that product up until now. I mean, I'm still running it, but the thing is that now I'm realizing that I can't really rely on just one product. I've been brainstorming a lot and thinking how I can take this brand to the next level and how I can get to a point where I sell the brand for $10 million, and also generate $10 million in revenue. I've already gotten to 1.6. I can definitely cross $2 million in total revenue by the end of the year for sure. I can probably even hit three, but I really got to think of a way to reduce my risk of actually having to sell physical products. Because, in my opinion, if you want to get to a point where your company or your brand is worth 8 figures, meaning $10 million, you're going to have some type of like virtual or digital or your membership type of aspect to the brand. And in ecom, we call this MRR, which stands for monthly recurring revenue, and ARR stands for annual recurring revenue. So everybody in e-commerce basically just chases MRR. We all want MRR. And when it comes to a brand like mine, it's really hard to think of a way to actually charge your customer every single month without having to send them a physical product. Because when you think of a subscription, you probably think of like vitamins or supplements or something that you get in the mail every 30 days. But we tend to forget that there's also digital subscriptions, like, for example, an app or a membership or a group chat, access to a digital product that you can have on a monthly basis. So that's when I started brainstorming and thinking of ideas to actually charge my customers on a monthly basis for a digital product. And since I'm in the education space, I could create some type of membership where I give each student, 25 questions a week, access to new products, access to monthly giveaways, custom PDFs on certain topics before their exam, give them like a certain score, a readiness score before they take their exam, get them ready for their exam. And I was using ChatGPT to come up with this idea because I knew I wanted to charge a subscription, but I just didn't really know what to put inside of the subscription, given the fact that I'm like an educational brand and we only sell like one product. And believe it or not, everything that I just told you that would be part of the subscription came from ChatGPT. I did not think of any of that myself. And it's really insane to think that AI can really just help you in anything. You just have to ask ChatGPT. So I asked ChatGPT how I could create a subscription that would be valuable. I'm going to charge 10 bucks a month for it initially, maybe raise the price later. And how can I pack it with as much value as possible for my ideal customer, which is basically just a paramedic student, an EMT student, or somebody that's going to take their exam. And ChatGPT even told me the tools that I should use to host the quizzes and how to recharge the customer and put them in a group chat. You need to be leveraging AI in almost everything. If you get stuck, tell ChatGPT where you are, how you got there, and where you want to go, and ask it how it could help you get there. And honestly, it's like having another business partner. It's insane. I think if you're at a similar point where you've made a good amount of money with your physical product brand, but you want to incorporate a subscription, definitely think of different ideas, not just sending the customer a physical product every month. Create some type of value pack that you could send them every single month that they keep paying for every single month. But that's one of the ideas that I have planned out for this brand because I've made a good amount of money, but I do think that incorporating the subscription will add a good amount of value to my brand, meaning that it could sell for more money. Because after watching a good amount of videos and talking to a couple mentors, they've told me that if you want to sell your brand for as much money as possible, not for like whatever you think your brand is worth right now, you're going to have to incorporate technology, meaning that you either going to have to build a custom software app yourself and have the brand own it, meaning that the app actually has to be proprietary to the brand, meaning that you have to hire a developer and invest money into a custom app. You cannot just rent an app and white label it and sell it to your customers. You're going to have to own the actual app and build that app to a point, where you have a good amount of monthly recurring revenue with that app, also have a subscription somewhere else, or just incorporate both. But having proprietary software and also MRR with your brand will basically just make your brand worth way more in the future rather than just relying on your e-commerce revenue. So that's exactly how I plan to get to a $10 million valuation. I really think that when it comes to e-commerce, you have to think outside of the box. It can't just be selling a physical product forever. If you're drop shipping, consider building a real brand with the product that you have right now. Think long term with that product. If you don't see yourself really building a brand with that product, but it has performed really well, just exit that brand or exit that store for a couple $1,000 or tens of thousands of dollars. I've had a couple friends exit drop shipping stores for a couple $100,000 and take that money and actually build a real brand. So that could be something that you do yourself. But if you already have a real brand and you're at the point where you've made a couple $100,000, going from 0 to 100K, I think is not that hard. It's definitely way harder than going from 100K to a million, because going from 0 to 100K, you have to figure out, what works, what products work, what website works, what ads work. And then from going from 100K to a million, you just have to replicate what's working. It didn't really take me that long to go from 100K to a million. It actually took me longer to go from 0 to 100K. But once I got to 100K, I kind of knew already how the momentum was going to go. I knew what was working and I knew who I needed to hire. The first thing that I hired was a VA for my customer service. Those are the kind of things you want to start doing along the way. Going from 1 million to 10 million is a different story, because you do have to understand that it is technically a 10x, but you're going to have to make $9 million more. And it's not just going to come from physical products. You're going to have to really understand different platforms. You're going to have to get on Amazon, TikTok Shop. You're going to have to start running ads if you're not already on Google. Obviously, up until this point, you're probably already running ads on Meta, but Meta, Google, probably TikTok, and just seeing what other platforms you can expand on and thinking of new ways to bring in money apart from the e-commerce sales. If you really don't know what else to do with your brand, talk to ChatGPT. Ask it, hey, I'm in this position right now. I'm building this brand. I want to take it to this level, but I don't know what else to do. I don't know what other products to come up with, and just watch it spit magic. I promise you, once you start using ChatGPT the right way, you're going to see how it could actually help you scale, and you're going to be surprised because when I started using it the right way, I was just dumbfounded. I had no idea that I could actually use this thing to, come up with new product ideas or new solutions for problems inside of my business. I think the next couple months for my brand are going to be quite interesting because the tariff situation, I'm going to build out this new membership for my students. I'm going to do a new product drop. I'm going to do a couple things within the brand. I know for a fact that every single idea that I have for this brand is going to succeed just because I know exactly what types of ideas actually work. Another thing that I want to mention is understanding how to manage your cash flow, because if you're not looking at your profit and loss on a monthly basis, you don't know how much money you're keeping and you don't know how much money the business is actually making, because you can be paying yourself, let's say 5 to 10K a month, but how much is the business actually keeping after salary? That's the most important question that you should be asking yourself, because if you don't know how much the business bank account is keeping, you're not growing, you're just maintaining. So the very first question that you should ask yourself after you get to a point where you're scaling is, how much is the business actually keeping? Because that is the number one thing that you should be focused on, maintaining your cash flow and just trimming the hedges on stuff that you don't need. Start cutting softwares that you don't need, cutting people that you don't need, and make sure that you are profitable. That way you're able to take that money after paying yourself and using it to actually grow the business, whether that be hiring specific people for new tasks or, buying more inventory, whatever it may be. Just make sure you use that money to grow the brand. I've been in ecom for almost 5 years now. I started when I was 18 years old. I'm almost 23, and I think I've learned a shit ton of stuff in the last 5 years. Honestly, I've failed so much. I've started like 5 drop shipping stores, and I think my very first video on this channel talks about those 5 stores. And I realized that it's not just about selling physical products, it's about building a real brand that you could sell for a good amount of money later on, and just adding as much as you can to that brand to make it valuable. So if you're currently running a brand, you're building a brand, or you want to scale your brand, I'm going to drop a link in the description down below if you want to book a call with me and just ask me any questions. Obviously, it's not going to be free, but I definitely think that I can add a lot of value to whatever you're doing. Over the last 5 years, I've paid for a good amount of mentorships and a lot of different courses. So I definitely think that I can help you out no matter what point of the journey that you're in. I'll be sure to drop that link in the description, and I'll also include the contacts for my email team and my accountant. But that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys got a lot of value. If you have any questions on anything that I mentioned in the video, just be sure to drop it down in the comment section, and I'll be sure to get back to you as soon as possible. I'll see you in the next video.